All right, how many of y'all have ever been to Schlitterbahn? Yeah, some of y'all have been to Schlitterbahn. There we go. Schlitterbahn. We don't want to crown that with many crowns, though it is the king of water parks. Schlitterbahn was, as a kid, my favorite place to go. Like, as a kid, it's like the dream world. Like, you just look at that and you're like, there's so much to do. And then as a parent, it is my greatest nightmare. And I look at that and I go, oh gosh, that's so stressful. I will lose all my kids, and there's just all the sun beating down on you and all of the chlorine with all that, the reason you need the chlorine and all the stuff in the water, and you're like, oh, I don't ever want to be near that again, which is why my kids have yet to go to Schlitterbahn. Sorry, boys. But besides the rides, besides the water parks, the slides, that is one of the best parts of going to Schlitterbahn. To me, the thing that I enjoyed the most was the lazy river. Y'all ever been on a lazy river? Maybe in Hawaiian Falls, you've been on a lazy river. We know it's kind of simple. I mean, Schlitterbahn has like 7 parks at this one park, but we would go to the one with the lazy river, and we would spend hours, like 6 hours of our 8 at the lazy river. Why? Because we played this game, me and some high school guys, we played King of the Mountain. And King of the Mountain is the game that you can play at any point in your life. It doesn't have to be in a lazy river, but it's very definitely more fun in the lazy river because they have these 15-foot crocodiles that they put in the lazy river that are kind of like floats, that are all throughout the river. And we, as these annoying teenage guys, would go in there and we would take over the lazy river, and we would have King of the Mountain on who could stay on top of the crocodile, which was so much fun because it required so much aggression and so much passion to always be on top. And so King of the Mountain is, how do I get on top? And then how do I stay on top? And it's very simple. You push people off, and then you get up and you push people down. That is King of the Mountain, and it is so much fun. And then if someone says, you know what, I'm going to flip the crocodile upside down, you're like, it doesn't matter to me. You just grab onto the crocodile and you spin upside down, and you stay out. You're like, I don't care. I'll wait you out. Usually you lose in that matter, being underwater. But it's yes, a highly dangerous game. I don't particularly encourage it, but it taught me a lot about life. It taught me the goal of King of the Mountain is to, if you want to win, you've got to put others down. You say, you chew on chlorine, welcome to my jungle here. Like, this is what it is. It taught me that to advance in life, you have to see others as enemies and to push everyone else down. This was the power structure of King of the Mountain, and it really has described the power structure as the world sees power today. And so today I don't want to talk about Schlitterbahn or King of the Mountain. On Palm Sunday, Jesus wants us to see that there is a different power structure at play in this world that upends that very, very toxic view of power. That is a very, very unhealthy, toxic view of power. And so today, I want you to forget all that you might expect of Jesus, and my hope is that you can adopt the title of this sermon, and it's to behold your King. I want you to behold your King this morning. And as you behold him, it will change you. And so the 3 ways we're going to talk about beholding your King is this: the King you didn't see coming, when God is different than you expected, and lastly, the question we must answer. So, the King you didn't see coming. Now, a lot can happen in a week, yes? And many of us know that feeling. A lot can happen in a week. Beginning of the week, you might have had money. The end of the week, it was all gone. Maybe that was some of y'all. The beginning of the week, you were riding high. We're invincible. Our team is invincible. At the end of the week, we're the worst. Beginning of the week, I know so much. I'm advancing in school. I'm so dumb. How am I not getting kicked out of this school, right? A lot can happen in a week. Jesus knows that a lot can happen in a week. On Palm Sunday to Easter Sunday, a lot happens. And in fact, a third of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, is spilt on this last week of Jesus. A third is spent on the last week of his life. And so it must be pretty important. A lot does happen in this last week. Now, building up to the last week, all throughout the Gospels, every single time Jesus does some type of supernatural healing, everyone's going, oh, you're the Son of God, you're the Messiah. And his common response every single time is, shh. He consistently shushes people. Maybe not in the way that you're like, all right, don't be that type of person. But he's consistently telling people, do not tell anyone about this. Every time that he heals someone, they're like, you're clearly the Son of God. And he's like, no, don't tell anyone. In fact, he deliberately says, do not go back to your town and tell people about me. And as you're reading the Gospels, you're like, why does he not want to do that? And here is why. This is why. Because the minute he accepts those titles, he knows it's the beginning of the end of his life. And right before the coronation, right before he's entering this triumphal entry into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, the passage right before this, he heals 2 blind men, and they respond as everyone else has in Matthew 20:30, and they respond and they say, Lord, Son of David. And at this point, Jesus accepts the titles. And you've got to imagine the disciples are like, oh, so now we're accepting messianic titles. I gave it to you last week, and oh no, but now these guys do it. Like, what? Be consistent. Because he knows that if he accepts these titles, it's over. And they calling him Lord under Roman oppression was a big deal. Calling someone Lord was a loaded term there. As Jesus is under Rome's thumb, and the emperor's name is the emperor, Lord, and God, that's a direct shot to call someone Lord. And then to call them Son of David just capped it off. Because David in Israel's history is the king. Every king wanted to be like David. He set the bar, he set the standard. And so now they're saying the Son of David, the one who's coming, the heir to David's throne, is here. If you accept that title, it's a direct shot against Rome. And Rome was fickle. Rome was very fickle. They played king of the mountain too. They knew how you got on top. They pushed others down, and they stayed on top, and they're constantly looking around at who's coming for my throne. So they're constantly looking and putting out would-be challengers to the throne. And if Jesus accepts these terms, he is now saying, I'm accepting the trouble of what's to come. And so any lack of loyalty to the government was taken as a direct shot. It would be like me saying something critical of our current administration right now. Like, I would never do that. Like, they're perfect. They do everything right. But if I did say something critical of our current administration right now, it'd be like saying that and then them sending me to an El Salvadorian prison and then going after lawyers who are now representing me. That would be what it'd be like. Because our current administration also plays king of the mountain as well. And so Jesus is speaking to a fickle government, like ones we might know about, and he's saying, I am the one true king. Shots fired. It is treason for him to accept these titles. And by doing so, he is revealing that he is a threat. Jesus is a threat. He is not safe. Jesus is a threat to the kingdoms of this world because all kings demand allegiance. We know this. All kings demand allegiance. Even Jesus demands allegiance. And when he comes on the scene, he is saying, do you pledge allegiance to me or to the kingdoms of this world? You cannot be divided on this. Who do you pledge allegiance to? He is forcing his identity on you, saying, crown me or kill me. Are you willing to follow that king? Because when he says, crown me or kill me, the crowd responds and they say, okay, we will kill you. Are we willing to respond to his question here? And so first, I want you to behold how commanding and confrontational and kingly Jesus is as he is embracing the titles. And so then in verse 8, It says, a very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. And so they put their coats on the road, and they put the branches. Some of them say they would lay the leaves out like that, so that as they came across, it was like rolling out the red carpet for Jesus. This is what you do for someone super important. You're rolling out the red carpet. Others, instead of throwing the branches on the ground, would take the palm branches and they would wave them, which is what we like to do here. And it's kind of cute, right? You're like, oh, I love when kids do that. Kids are going to do it later. It's going to be beautiful. But think about what's happening there. Under Roman oppression, this right here, this is not just a random branch. This was the sign of this was their national symbol. It's like waving a flag at a parade. And so if you're waving this in Roman oppression, this is a rebellious act to wave this palm branch in this moment. Everyone grab your palm branch. I want you to feel it. I want you to feel like the leaves. These are real palm branches, by the way. This is not fake. Feel the rebellion laced within these leaves. There is power in what this is saying. This is a symbol, them saying, Rome, you may occupy us, but you will never own our hearts. We have one true allegiance. And unlike what the high priest said in our liturgy, where they say we have no king but Caesar, wild that the high priest, the religious leaders would say that. We have no king but Christ. And so I want everyone to wave your palm branch, and I want you to say, Hosanna. Say, I have no king but Christ. Oh, that's what you're doing when you wave these things. It is a rebellious, guttural cry. Hosanna means to save us. To save us from oppression, from those who take. That is what's happening here. Verse 9, Hosanna, son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. He's quoting from Psalm 118, where it says, Lord, save us. And which in Hebrew, Hosanna, Lord, grant us success. And so what we're saying here is the king has come. When we wave these branches, we are professing we have no king but Christ. The king has come, and this is him. And so whether you are conservative, moderate, or progressive, we all are begging for a king to save us. Everyone is begging. Everyone can look at this world and go, it's broken. I need a king to save us. But the question is, how will that king save us? How will this king save us? And that comes to our second point here. When God is different than you expected. Has God ever shown himself to you to be different than you expected? Sometimes it can be shocking. Sometimes it can be shocking to go, oh, is that who you are? And maybe a little disappointing. Like, oh, I thought you were like this. Other times we go, you're better than I expected. And we hope we can get there. But if we're honest, there's times when God shows up different than we expect. And that's where the disciples are at this moment, where the people are at. Because they are thinking, finally, Jesus is taking his power seriously. Like, we've seen you raise the dead. I bet you can also make people dead just like that. Like, let's take power by the horns. Let's do to them as they have done to us. Because they came after our children, why don't we start with their children? Let's go after them. They're the rich taking from the poor, let's take from them. I've starved for the last month, let's let them starve. There is a violent revolution bubbling up in these cries of Hosanna. So it's not just as cute as we might think about it. They're saying, save us. Now we got one of ours in power. Oh, make them pay. Make them pay. That is the Hosanna that they are shouting at this time. It is saying, oh, Jesus, grab the war horse and slay all of your enemies. And what does Jesus do? He doesn't grab a war horse, he grabs a donkey. Like, it would have been so much like tap the brakes, Jesus, no. Not only is it inappropriate for you to grab this donkey, it would be embarrassing for them. It's like having a general drive into battle on a VW Bug. And you're like, what are you doing? Can you wait? Foreign army? Let's get you in a tank. You're doing it in a VW. You cannot roll into battle in a Ford Pinto. No, you cannot go on a donkey. That's what the donkeys wore. They're for the servants. You as the king are doing that. It's inappropriate. It's probably just as inappropriate as some of y'all are thinking, do we really have a preacher up there in a hoodie and a hat preaching a sermon? Anyone thought that? Like that? And it's a little weird. Yeah, I see some nods. I got you. It was for this very point. It was to make the point. It was to make the point that sometimes we're like, oh, maybe you should have dressed up a little bit. You're preaching a sermon, all eyes on you. Well, I would have to say to you and to Evan Ilizada, who explicitly called me out earlier in the first stuff, he's like, oh, you're really dressing down for the sermon today. It's like, oh, you wait. And I called him out twice now. And what I believe is that this hoodie is more appropriate than anything else I could have worn, because actually on the hoodie is this image up here of the Archangel Michael slaying the devil. That feels like the most hardcore thing to be wearing as we enter Holy Week, and to say, let's kill the devil, let's beat back evil and all of its friends, and that's what I'm celebrating. So yes, I think it's very appropriate. Thank you very much. Now the hat I can get, you're like, okay, you're really a 41-year-old man clinging to his youth here. I'm doing what I can. But when they saw the donkey, they're probably feeling that sense of inappropriateness, like, oh, come on, Jesus, what are we doing here? It was embarrassing to them. And Jesus continues to upend our expectations of him. They have the right king, but the wrong expectations. Verse 5 says, behold, your king is coming to you. Behold, your king is coming to you. If you can do one thing as you walk out of this sermon this morning and to apply, I want you to behold your king. To behold means to look at, to gaze at, to really look at. And how many of us can say we've beheld Jesus? How many of us can say that I actually take time to behold my king, to savor, to absorb, to enjoy, to contemplate my king? I want us to behold your king, and by beholding your king, the way to do that is to look at who he actually says he is in scriptures. And so behold your king. How does he come? And the first thing we hear is behold your king in verse 5, and then the second part is he comes gentle and riding on a donkey. Whew. Surprising to everyone there. He comes gentle. He could have chosen to come in any shape or form. He chose to come gentle. Why? Because it reveals to us his true nature, that he is not coming to bring war. He's coming to bring peace. So you have this meek, peaceful, donkey-riding Jesus that is not the leader of an anti-Roman insurrection. His kingdom is one of peace, not coercion. His kingship will be established without violence, without force, and without oppression. John 18 tells us that Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight. But because my kingdom is not of this world, my servants better not fight. Are we listening to that? My kingdom is not of this world. It's different the way you think about your kingdoms. And we like to associate gentleness and meekness with weakness. We're like, oh, why would you choose that, Jesus? But think about this. Think about how much strength it takes to not retaliate with violence. Think about how much strength it took for those followers of nonviolent resistance throughout history to hold back and not retaliate with violence. I mean, you can think of Gandhi, who toppled the British Empire with his nonviolent rhetoric and his actions. It was so moving, it inspired Martin Luther King Jr. in the civil rights movement, who said, the way to win this war is through suffering, and it's through suffering that we will disarm our enemies. It's what Ruby Bridges led with. Ruby Bridges, a 6-year-old, defied mobs and desegregated her school. She's just so beautiful, it's so small. But she had to go into her Louisiana school, an all-white school with U.S. Marshals protecting her, because outside the schools were mobs of people shouting the most ugly, heinous things you can think of. One woman held up a sign that said, "All I want for Christmas is a clean white school." One woman held up a mini coffin with a black doll in it. I mean, the sheer ugliness is so bad that books being written about Ruby Bridges are now being pulled from our libraries because we can't face to see how bad we can actually become. And yet, it was through Ruby Bridges' gentleness that she disarmed her school. She won over her racist teachers and then the administration and the community. It's through gentleness that we overtake our communities. There is great strength in gentleness, and we see it in Ruby Bridges, and that is the way of Jesus. Jesus' triumphal entry is a paradox. Jesus does come to overthrow unjust rulers, but not in the way that you expect. He does overthrow them, but in a very different way. We do have a king, but he's not on the mountain, he's on a donkey. Oh, we sung "Crown Him with Many Crowns." One of my favorite hymns, "Crown Him with Many Crowns." But if we said that's the whole song, we have a king on the mountain, and let's crown him and let's destroy our enemies. But the following verse is, the Lamb upon the throne. That fuels the type of king he is, the Lamb upon the throne. And that image of the Lamb on the throne is the same image that we see all throughout the book of Revelation that we're going through. It's the slain Lamb, the defeated, suffering Lamb. That's how he rules and reigns in this world. And so the slain Lamb is the king. And so Jesus did not come to meet your expectations. He came to meet your deepest need. If your faith is based on your expectations of God, it will fail. Because there'll be times when you do get disappointed. But if our faith is built on who Jesus actually is, it will be strengthened. And so this forces us to our last point, and it's the question that we must all answer. There is a burning question that every single person in this world has to answer. It's the questions the crowds felt as they saw this Jesus coming into Jerusalem, and there's this overwhelming chorus of song of people saying, "Hosanna in the highest," and the crowds go, "Who is this Jesus?" Verse 10, who is this? Who is this? Is the question that you and I have to ask. Who is Jesus to you? Who is he to you? Malcolm said last week that when we went to this conference in Minneapolis, they had this dialogue between an atheist and an apologetics guy. And in that conversation, the atheist said, "I don't find the label Christian helpful anymore." So I used to be able to know a little bit about who I'm talking to when they said I'm a Christian, but these days I don't find the label helpful anymore. I have to ask a lot of follow-up questions and saying, are you the love your neighbor type of Christian, or love your enemy type of Christian, or are you the culture war Christian? And the fact that an atheist doesn't know what we believe, based on just the word Christian alone, reveals that we have failed to behold our King. We have failed to behold our King. If we actually beheld who Jesus actually is, it would project something to the outside world and to reveal what we actually believe here in this world, that is something better than this culture war. And so who is Jesus to you? Are you willing to accept who Jesus is no matter what? If your answer is yes, what if he challenges you? Are you still willing to follow Jesus? I think many people throughout history have used Jesus to advance their cause. Sadly, that happens all the time. But what happens if Jesus is against your cause? Are you willing to repent and to recalibrate? Even then, are you willing to have Jesus challenge you and actually say, no, you are king. I will follow you no matter what. I may not understand you, but I will follow you. Because if we cannot have a king who contradicts us, then we are worshiping an idealized version of ourselves. If our king can't contradict us, we're not worshiping the king, we're just worshiping what we want him to be like. Many people have an idealized version of Jesus. Say, I like the idea of Jesus, but I want the Jesus to believe everything I believe and hate all the people I hate and love all the people I love. Really, we've now divorced who Jesus actually is from who he is. And so have we beheld him? Pure, unadulterated, who are you, Jesus? And if you do behold him, now he's saying, follow me. Are you willing to follow? The only way you'd be willing to follow is if you trust that king. If you've ever had coaches who say things like, trust the process, trust the process. Usually that means something like, hey, it's hard right now. Going through this is really difficult, but trust the process. At the end, it's going to be worth it. And the only reason you're willing to follow that coach through a really hard time is if they've earned your trust. And so, has Jesus earned your trust? What type of king is inviting us to follow him? Now remember, Jesus also knew that a lot can change in a week. He knew that one of his friends, Judas, would betray him with a kiss, and yet he rode in for you. He knew that his closest friend, Peter, would abandon him and deny that he even knew him 3 times, and yet he rode in for you. He knew that the whole world would look at his triumphal entry as this giant disappointment of saying you should have taken over, and yet he rode in for you. And he knew that when riding in for you would mean his own death. And if that's the king who's offered to us, I will follow that king anywhere. That is leading with sacrifice, leading with humility, leading with hope. And so that's the king that is inviting us to follow him. He still rides in for us. But when he comes back, Jesus is not coming back on a donkey. When he comes back, he's not coming back on a donkey. He's coming riding the clouds, we're told. And in that day, we won't be the ones with the palms waving in the air. In fact, the palm branches will be actually attached to the trees, and the trees themselves will be clapping their hands. Isaiah 55 tells us this. Isaiah 55:12, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. Now, what is beautiful about this is for many of us here who struggle with staying on beat, I get it. The trees are going to help you out in heaven. You'd be like, oh, follow what they're doing. But think about that. Trees clapping their hands doesn't seem normal. But this is the new heavens and new earth. Who knows if trees can actually clap their hands? And if that's true of trees, what will be true of you? You and I have 5 senses. How many senses are we going to have in the new heavens and new earth? 25? I don't know. If trees can clap their hands, who knows? Maybe we'll be able to feel all the vibrations in the multiverse and to be able to understand what's going on all at one time. Maybe we'll be able to feel colors and go like, oh, I know what's happening, and emotions. Like, who knows what will happen in the new heavens and new earth? But that only becomes true if we behold Jesus as he is. Will you behold your king? Who is this Jesus? He tells us he is gentle, he's riding on a donkey, he doesn't crush his enemies, he is crushed for his enemies. His throne is a cross. His crown is made of thorns, and every other king sends their people into battle to die for them, but this king goes into battle to die for his people. This is a different type of kingdom we have here. Behold your king. And as you behold him, you start to reflect his ways. And so what does this mean for you? It means we do not wage war as the world does. If the world pushes you down playing king of the mountain, we don't engage in that, because we possess a weapon far more powerful than that. The weapon of suffering. Are you still willing to follow that king? Even if that's your one weapon. To fight with suffering, willing to follow that Lord. What would that look like for you? To use that as a weapon. To be willing to suffer. It's through suffering that he conquers, through defeat that he wins. But good news, Christian, that means you cannot be defeated, by the way. You cannot be defeated. The world may strike us like it did to our Lord. The world may beat us and mock us and crucify us, but they cannot win, because they did all of that to Jesus, and the Lamb has won. The Lamb has won. It is done. It is finished. And so we do sing, crown him with many crowns, the Lamb upon the throne. That song goes on to say, awake my soul and sing of him who died for thee, and hail him as thy matchless King through all eternity. My prayer for you today is that you behold Jesus, behold your King. And as you behold your King, you can hail him as thy matchless King. No one can match this Jesus for all eternity. Let me pray for us.